Why is answering these questions giving me an existential crisis? Hi, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Svenya and I like to talk about books. And today I'm going to be doing something really exciting. I'm finally going to do the BookTube Newbie tag, which is a little bit overdue, but I'm excited to get started. Why did I start this channel? I've been an avid reader for as long as I can remember, and I've also loved the BookTube community ever since I discovered it way back in high school, and it's always been something that I aspired to. And then one day I was running through the script of a book review that I wanted to give, and I was like, wow, I could just film this. And suddenly this barrier to entry that I had constructed for myself fell down, and I realized that I could do this too. It's something that I've always wanted to do, and I'm finally just taking the leap and getting started. What are some fun and unique things that you can bring to BookTube? Just like everyone, I have a unique perspective. And while mocking that, in the same breath, I'm going to say that I do feel like I have a pretty interesting reading taste. I read at this intersection of adult high fantasy, garbage YA romance, and then nonfiction and classics that I haven't really seen before. I also feel like what I read most, this high epic adult fantasy, is a genre that historically is represented by middle-aged guys reading it. And so I want to be a part of changing that narrative. That reading cool girl books isn't just reading in-depth character studies that win the Pulitzer Prize, but that a cool girl book can also be the Wheel of Time. Why do I love reading? I love reading because it's fun. It's always been a pastime that's been really close to my heart. When I was a kid, I moved around a lot, and the only thing that I could bring with me from house to house were my books. And they were really meaningful for me to be able to dive into these worlds and see myself represented in them. I've always seen them as more than just entertainment. I read first and foremost to have fun, but I feel like there's something about reading and what it reveals about being human that's always really spoken to me. And it sounds so cheesy, what it reveals about the human experience. I sound like my English teacher, but it's true. Cheesy, but true. Controversial, yet brave. What book or series got you into reading? I was an absolute simp for the Clique series when I was a kid. This is definitely the first series that really got me hooked on reading. For those of you who don't know, The Clique is a middle grade series following a group of middle school girls in Westchester, New York, who are all incredibly mean to each other and their shenanigans as they, do 12, 13-year-old girl stuff. And as a 10-year-old girl, I loved reading these. There's 20 books in the series, and a girl in my neighborhood that was a year older than me started reading them, and we took the bus to school together. And she talked about how fun they were, and I obviously wanted to be like her, so I started reading them, and then we would talk about them on the bus. And it was the first time that I'd read something and talked to someone else about it and really gotten into a series, and I was voraciously reading them. I was tearing through them every day. I would get home and just read these books. I would read one and done a day. It was so much fun. And then I fell down a Nicholas Sparks rabbit hole that 12-year-olds should not go down, and the rest is history. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I have a lot of questions. For those of you who don't know, though by night I am this valiant booktuber, by day I'm a designer, and I'm mostly interested in the intersection of technology and literacy and how we can use good design to get more people to read. And BookTube is a place where the questions that I ask professionally are being put in place in the real world of people forming relationships about books digitally and digitizing the communal experience of reading. And so I would love to talk to more established booktubers about what that is like, what forming community is like, and what people want to talk about, and how conversations about books are structured online, and how reading as a hobby can be moved into the 21st century, and how it can be digitized, and their opinions on the relative merits and faults of trying to digitize their hobby. It's something that I could talk about for hours. Yeah, I would love to talk to people who have established communities on BookTube about what their experience on BookTube has been like in that respect. What challenges with starting a BookTube do you think will be the hardest to overcome? I think there are two. First is the problem with consumerism on BookTube, where you feel like you always have to be buying a lot of books and have a gorgeous bookshelf and keeping up with new releases. I think there's a lot of pressure, and that's totally understandable. And I've definitely fallen prey to that. Book buying and book reading are two completely different hobbies, and for a while I convinced myself that I was a reader even though I was only ever just buying books. So I know that that's a trap that I'm very likely to fall into, and so that's something that I need to check myself on. So trying not to just buy a whole bunch of books is one, and then the other is not getting caught up in the numbers of it all. This is first and foremost a hobby for me, and I'm doing this because I love talking about books, and I want to talk to other people who love talking about books, and I want to get new book recommendations, and I want to share my favorite books with the world, and I don't want to get caught up in the numbers of it and psych myself out. I don't want to get caught up in ideas that I have about what success and failure looks like on the platform, because I'm not doing this for anyone else's success or failure. I'm doing this because I think it's fun. So I'm trying not to set myself up for failure, but we'll see. When did you start reading? I don't know, when I was a kid, when my parents taught me to read. No, my parents taught me to read when I was pretty young, and they got me to read by introducing this reward system. If I finished a book, I would get a certain number of like plastic gemstones that we had, and then there was a piece of paper that was printed out that was like the storefront. With 10 gems I could buy a Barbie doll, with 20 gems I could get a movie, and so I could redeem my gems for things that I actually wanted, for toys and stuff. And so they monetized reading for me very early. From a young age, there's been this intrinsic reward in my mind for reading, and then my parents kept that up as I grew older. It became a penny a page once I had a conception of what real money was. And so as a kid, that was really important to get me reading, but also keep me reading. Where do I read? I think this question is mostly defined by how I read, which is almost exclusively with audiobooks. Hear me out. This is my gospel. If you walk away with nothing else from this video, it's this. I don't just listen to audiobooks. I listen and read at the same time. Why? Because I'm not convinced that I'm literate anymore. I listen and read so that I can set the speed to just a little bit faster than my eyes would read on their own. So I'm following along on the text, and I'm moving through the story faster than if I were reading, which makes me feel A, like I'm moving quickly and the plot is coming at me quickly and helps me get through more books faster. And B, I can see an exact number on my screen of how long it's gonna take me to read a book, which makes planning for reading so much easier, because it's no longer this insurmountable task of I have to read 300 pages, this is gonna take me all week, but I have 2 hours left on this audiobook, and that makes it feel a lot more manageable, and that helps me read a lot faster. And so when I'm listening and reading at the same time, I like to be sitting. I'm either on my couch or in bed, but I also then listen to the audiobook in the in-between times in my day. So when I'm getting ready, when I'm cooking, all the time I'm listening to the audiobook, and then it's really easy to sync up with an ebook. I just search to where I am, or in a physical book, flip open to where I left off in the audiobook, and then I keep going. And that helps me get through a lot of titles really quickly and makes reading more enjoyable, because it doesn't feel like I'm setting myself up to fail anymore. So it was tangential, but I think it's important. Listen while you read. It's not embarrassing. When we were kids, we had our parents read out loud to us. Why can't we have someone read out loud to us when we're adults? What kinds of books do you like to read? I already answered this question. Did I do a bad job? Yeah, I read across genres, I guess. I read a lot of epic fantasy. That's what I read almost exclusively during quarantine. Really fell down the rabbit hole, started with Brandon Sanderson, and I'm now all the way in the Wheel of Time. And then I like to sprinkle in a little bit of contemporary fiction, and I also read a little bit of nonfiction and some YA garbage, because I am who I am. And I'm not embarrassed about my taste, because when I read in my free time, I'm reading for fun. I love the classics. I have so much respect for them as pieces of literature. If you're interested in hearing my experience reading those as a young adult, let me know, and I can definitely make a video on how to enjoy the classics without being pretentious about it. And yeah, that brings us to the end of this tag. I understand that it's so that people can get to know me better, but wow, is answering questions about yourself and why you've decided to do something that scared you for a while kind of scary to do. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Svenya Has a Crisis. I had a lot of fun. I hope that you did too. Let me know in the comments what your favorite genre of books is. I'm super excited to be starting this journey on BookTube. I hope to see you guys soon.